Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Sit Around the Fire. You are listening to the podcast and listening to me, Ashley Dillard, a therapist, hypnotherapist, and former first responder. This podcast is dedicated specifically to the real conversations that we don't have enough of. We're talking about mental health, trauma, resilience, and what it means to take care of the people who are always taking care of everyone else. So welcome into the show, my friends, and I'm excited to bring you a very special guest here today, dialing in from North Carolina, Mitch Webb. So welcome to the show, Mitch. Well, my number one favorite question that I like to ask right off the bat is, for the person listening today, and because we know that there are no coincidences, it's probably somebody who's living in some state of nervous system dysregulation. So for that person who's listening today, what message do you want them to walk away with?
That's a great question. I would say, with everything that I learned, I think one of the biggest things that I cover with clients in the beginning who are, experiencing all kinds of different symptoms, their nervous system dysregulated, and they've really been looking for what's wrong and trying to figure that out and fix themselves for so long. And what I like to start with is your body's not broken. We tend to look at trauma like it's something that's wrong and we need to get it out of our system. And I would say that's incorrect. I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. I think the body is responding perfectly to the environments that we've been in. And these symptoms are more survival responses, and it's a way that we've stayed safe in difficult situations. And you know just because maybe it's not in alignment with where we want to be or how we want to feel now, it's just something to notice. And trauma heals through new experiences, not through force. And so letting go of my body's a problem, I need to fix it, looking at myself like an experiment or a problem to be solved. It's an outdated way of looking at things. And it also tells our nervous system that there's a threat that won't go away. And that was a big thing for me, is just education and learning. Body's not broken. It's responding perfectly and actually very intelligently for the spaces and places we've been in the past.
Nice. My heart is over here exploding because these are the things that I say all the time. My audience gets to hear me speak this all the time, but I'm
Yeah.
really glad to hear you say it as well, and particularly around there's nothing wrong with you. Like, we always have this mentality that there's something we have to fix or something that's we need to do something, and that's part of the problem in itself. So thank you for bringing some more
Sure.
awareness and
Love to.
enlightenment to that. Very helpful. So I was looking through your website and digging in to learn a little bit more about who you are. And I really liked the top line on your website is brilliant. Helping you reclaim energy, trust your body, and finally feel at home in yourself. And I know that we don't come up with these taglines for no reason. So I'm guessing that this has a close connection to your story and kind of why you got into this work, which we'll talk about later. But give us a little bit of a story, or tell us a little bit about, like, how did you land where you are and picking this really powerful tagline?
I mean, it kind of goes back to the first question, a lot of trial and error and thinking something was wrong with me, definitely not feeling at home in my body. And, the energy that I had before, at first it was a lot of activation. And we know we kind of go into a collapse state with prolonged stress after a period of time. So there's the fatigue. And looking back, um, just having those experiences where it didn't feel like it was me and felt like something was wrong, and then really getting chewed up and spit out by the wellness industry. Because if you got something that, if you don't feel whole, if you don't feel like yourself, if you're worried about symptoms, sensations in the body, if they feel uncomfortable or uncertain, then society tells us to fix it, to put a band-aid on it, take a pill, try something new. And I found myself going back and forth through those, different fix it modalities, whether it was nutrition or exercise or biohacking, detoxing, a new morning routine. I mean, ultimately, this is OCD. And not feeling safe and trying to control that, being the glue that allows my body to function because I thought it was broken. And that loop will be endless. There will always be something new to try, and something to optimize. And if we look at our body like that, it's sending this danger signal. There's no safety. There's no trust. Trust and comes from inside. It's not on the outside. But society says, don't trust your body. Trust this new modality. It was just so nice to learn about the nervous system and to learn how to regulate that, and to see that, you know I can put down all of these optimizing tools that were ultimately driving all of this dysregulation, and unwind all of these protective patterns that I thought were me or my identity, and get to meet myself and feel at home in my body. And when we quit responding to the symptoms or reacting to the symptoms, and teach our brain that it's safe. Now we're kind of talking about a top down approach. Well, then the symptoms don't have to get our attention so much. And for someone who's been doing the shift into being and allowing and accepting and being with symptoms, um I mean, that's what I was looking for 20 years of optimization.
Yeah, you said it perfectly that doing, doing, doing more and more to try to find the answer. I know we have a lot of first responders, a lot of military members that listen to our show. In that, if there was ever a famous tagline, it would be like, "What's the next thing? Like, what's the next supplement? What's the next biohacking routine to saunas to those PMF mats to like
Definitely.
all the things, which they're not bad things, but like that you said it so well of all these things and still never getting to the root.
Yeah, we're trying to. I heard this recently. I think you'll like this. It's like it came from AA. I had somebody on my podcast, and she said like addiction is trying to fill the God-sized hole, right? And like you can take that and apply it to addiction, and society looks at addiction like it's a bad thing. What's the same thing with what's it called when you're like an obsession with health? That's trying to fill a hole too. And really, what we're looking for is to feel at home in our body again. So that just kind of made sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned control before as well, which OCD being one of those, like I like it in like the flight sense of things, trying to have everything under control or predictable so that the nervous system has some kind of recognition to go off of. But talk to us a little bit about like how you see this show up, because one of the big things I talk about a lot is that this doesn't just happen compartmentally. Like you're not just experiencing this in one aspect of your life. Your nervous system doesn't work like that. Your nervous system doesn't know time, place, or event. So if you're exhibiting and experiencing this OCD tendency, this is showing up throughout your life. So talk to us a little bit about like the control side or the need for control, why it's actually a safety mechanism rather than just the desire to be in control.
Yeah, I mean, I see control. And I love what you said about it's like how we do one thing is how we do everything. And once you can start to see how we control how we feel, what happens throughout the day, and it can look so sexy on the outside. I'm in control and I've got everything under control. It's uncertainty is means it's uncertainty is scary, and so we're going to try to be perfect. We've had a terrible experience in the past where we felt out of control, and now we're going to organize our life around that so we don't experience that symptom or sensation again. Maybe there was a lack of control early on in childhood, and so now I'm going to live in my head. I'm going to think my way to safety and avoid the sensations, the symptoms that are below in the body. And then we these survival responses, we think they're us, perfection, people pleasing, um all or nothing thinking, living in the intellectualization. I thought my intellectualization was a superpower. I thought that my ability to be a chameleon and shapeshift in the corporate world, especially working in sales, I thought that was what people wanted. But where am I in all of that? And in that scenario of shape shifting, we're abandoning ourselves. right? And once you finally get to zoom out and see that it's coming from a lack of safety, a lack of self-trust, and an inability to be with uncertainty, it's really it's kind of wild. And I was controlling through, first it was diet and exercise and the biohacking, and feeling like I had all these different routines for if I wake up with fatigue. I don't want to experience fatigue. I want to get after it. So the wellness industry at the time tells me, do a fast until lunchtime, have some coffee, do a hard workout, get an ice bath, do some sauna and some breath work later. And that's an inability to sit with uncomfortable sensation. But that symptom and that sensation in our body, there's nothing wrong with it. We get taught that that's bad and we need to fix it. And that becomes the control. I don't want to feel this anxiety or this fatigue. Um, I don't want to um, show up imperfect, and so we take on all of these different roles, and it's intelligent. It's a very it's a way of surviving. And thank God we had that when we didn't have safety. And this work is really zooming out, observing these patterns and the emotions that are underneath that, and learning to trust our body and to not be the glue that's holding our body together. Um, and to really sit with the beliefs that are driving that as well. I think it's a top down and a bottom up approach. But when you can see it, I mean, it's pretty jaw dropping. And if you can see it in one area, like you said, it's gonna bleed out into everything.
As I hear you speaking, I'm just reflecting on everything in my life, which I love the commonality in that we're all working on this. Like nobody has arrived, nobody has it all figured out. It's like we're all learning and experiencing this together. And so there's so many different ways that I can see where this is played out in my life, but then also like it still shows up in my life in ways like your nervous system. It takes time while you're learning the new patterning and learning the new ways, but everything from I can resonate with you. I was going through a season myself of restricting food, diet, and exercise. And through that, when you talked about that lack of flexibility or that wanting to be in control, was I would lose my mind if I couldn't get my workout in, or if I couldn't, measure food or going out and trying to order food. And you don't realize, which this will relate to the question around what I'm hoping you'll talk about, is this whole thing of why that gets so stuck, or it feels so hard to break out of those patterns, and why if you can't do those things, if you can't maintain that lifestyle, it literally will throw off your entire day. Like your entire system becomes even more whacked out if those strict control things stay in place. So I'm just wondering if you can speak to that part.
Yeah, man. So you went through a season, girlfriend. I went through like a decade of it. It feels like, I felt like my body was broken, and if I can do everything right, then ultimately I'll be whole. I'll be okay, right? And so we're saying I need these things to be safe. And so it's when we haven't experienced safety, which again, it's intelligent, it makes sense. We need that when we feel out of control, and then we do that for a long period of time, and we see how damn exhausting it is, and how much pressure we're putting on ourselves to be perfect, right? And again, it's telling our system that it feels fragile too, right? It feels like if this doesn't go right, then I'm gonna be wrong, I'm gonna be bad. And now we're almost talking about like attachment wounds and things like that, right? It's an intelligent response to having these early wounds of not feeling safe, to not having a secure attachment, and then being and taking on this survival response of being perfect and holding everything together so that we can feel good. Well, that works until it doesn't. I know that for me, it's kind of a thing where fixing it, right, feels good for a brief period of time. And then we need a new thing, right? We're like, again, we're trying to fill that hole. And in this case, we're using a restrictive diet. Well, it could be anything. It could be an exercise. It could be, like you said, weighing and measuring your food. It could be eating healthy. It could be alcohol. It could be drugs. It could be any of that. And so society labels one way better than the other. But what we have to learn is that all of these are sending the same signal. And it's kind of going back to what we were saying earlier of how we do one thing is how we do all the things. And so when I learned about OCD and how that contributed to a sensitized nervous system, it was like, holy crap, and even trying to put down the constant fixing was tough when my nervous system had responded or relied on that to feel safe for so long. But once we do kind of get that bird's eye view and see how it's affecting our life, how it's adding pressure, how it's just so damn exhausting, and put that down, I mean, we're taking so much pressure off the nervous system, pressure off of ourselves, and we can start to meet those parts of ourselves that feel like they have to control, that are holding a lot of tension, a lot of emotion. I know for me, whenever I start, a lot of the things that I do with clients is mapping these compulsions and seeing, oh, when I get stressed, here's how I respond. And then it doesn't mean that you don't eat a healthy diet. It doesn't mean you don't get your workout in. It means that we stop compulsively responding and trying to fix. And maybe we put that on a schedule where maybe your supplements, they go into a pill organizer. When I learned about this, for me, that was the toughest thing. It took me 2 weeks to actually put my supplements in a pill organizer because I was waking up every morning and checking in with how I feel and responding with supplements. And, I'm on a TRT protocol. I was, changing DHEA and pregnenolone, altering testosterone. And, when you're in a TRT protocol, it is a set it and forget it kind of thing. But I didn't know how this control was showing up and what that was actually doing to my nervous system, changing things all the time. And so, we really want to work with someone who's kind of been there and that can gently point these things out, get curious with why we're doing that. But when we can kind of see it, we don't have to be it, right? And instead of constantly reacting, we can meet the part of us that feels like life's gonna fall apart if we're not holding everything together, and also see how dysregulating that is. And so it's not about, all or nothing. It's kind of contrast, and seeing what it's like to control and how that feels and how the body will even kind of tense up, and then seeing what it's like to actually follow impulse and to be. 'Cause a lot of times it takes reps. It takes that awareness to see that contrast so that we ultimately get to choose, because regulation is, I have to do this and I got to control this or else I'm going to die, or that's dysregulation. And regulation is choice and trust. And that can be really scary to a nervous system who's built safety through control.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm still living that. I haven't, nobody, like I said, nobody's arrived. I think it just, yeah, it is learning a whole new way of doing things. And I'm curious to hear from you on how, when you were, and maybe you're still even experience it now if you're like me, how does rest generally feel for you? Like sitting down to rest and do nothing. How does you?
So that's an interesting question that I've been thinking about a lot. So in my world, in our world, because I work with special forces guys and professional athletes and first responders, so I get like rest is fucking hard, right? Like we don't want to rest. We want to be go go go. And I think there's two sides of this coin though. And anything we talk about in the nervous system space, it's all nuanced. It requires context. It requires a conversation, because if we just talk about rest, then we're going to miss half the people. Now, when I had a lot of activation leading to fatigue, eventually, I would call that a sensitized nervous system. It's kind of like global high from a somatic experiencing standpoint that eventually goes into collapse. We know that sympathetic is still, it's like a duck on water. It looks nice and smooth, but those legs are going underneath, right? And so, and especially being around me healing with a lot of women, and the message is, you got to rest. And I absolutely 100% agree. and the type A, go, 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 burning both ends, rest when you die kind of people that I'm sure both of us know, they need to learn how to rest. They need to learn that it's okay to rest. That's difficult when we've built our identity around doing and producing and being a superhero, right? It's really hard to rest. That means I'm not being productive. I'm being worthless. Those are some of the messages that myself and clients got. And so yeah, we got to learn to rest, and that means really resting, not looking at your phone, not thinking like not beating yourself up for resting. For me, resting back in the day was like taking a day off of CrossFit, doing a hot yoga class, dunking myself in ice bath, and doing breath work afterwards. Right. That's a lot of sympathetic energy, and that's just throwing gas on the fire. But that is like a calm day for someone who's saving lives and fighting in war and the owner of a company or being a single parent all by yourself. And when people are depending on you, and we get, what's the word I'm looking for? We feel needed, we feel loved, we feel like we belong from that too. That's a lot to unpack, man. And so one thing that I've learned is that for me, yes, I had to learn how to rest. And a lot of fatigue also comes from waiting for some perfect health to live the life that we want to live. My symptoms I learned how to rest, and I thought that meant I need to be on the couch all week long, and I'm going to wait for my symptoms to get better by resting. And I think a lot of fatigue can also come from the body being bored, from being unfulfilled. For me, waiting for myself to be perfectly healed to engage in the life that I want. And so in that situation, we have to also learn to do life with symptoms. And that means taking the anxiety with you, not ignoring it, not suppressing it, not pushing it away, saying, hey, yeah, I feel that you're in that fire. I feel like my body's on fire. And I would call that like an anxiety type of thing, and saying, I'm going to get real clear on what my values are, and I'm going to do life anyways. I'm going to do that workout because ultimately your life can get very small. I think it's called like agoraphobia, where we're avoiding life because because these symptoms have gotten so bad. And so there with rest, maybe it's one day a week, maybe it's 15 minutes between calls, maybe it's pausing between environments to orient, to use our senses to be here now. But that's why I like to teach a lifestyle and teach different options, kind of like an a la carte, so that we can try different things and feel on what's right for us in the moment, in the season, in the different times of life, so that we don't go into these patterns of all or nothing and perfection when we're just trying to fucking rest.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Yeah.
that's a lot to kind of talk about and to swing it back and forth, but that's life. Life is messy, and it's really awareness that we're talking about, attunement, meeting ourselves in those moments. And sometimes it's doing life feeling uncomfortable, and sometimes it's taking a break when things are uncomfortable. And the only person that can tell you how to do that correctly is you. You are the medicine. Nobody is, not me, not Ashley. We're not going to tell you the perfect way to do it. That's the old way. That's the old pattern. We want to be with that part of ourselves that feels like it's got to control anything, and then we want to learn how to respond to our body through awareness, through understanding what's going on and the symptoms of what they're communicating. Is this a all day I need to rest, or is this an active recovery day? Is this a 15 minutes on the floor? Or is this I need to go get a massage type of day? Like there's so many options. And when we can, life is fluid. Life happens all the time and it ain't perfect. And can I meet myself if I pick the right thing for that day, or if I overdo it? Can I meet myself in both situations? And I think that that's really what we're looking for, is not something that's perfect. It's something that is responding, it's choosing, it's meeting ourselves no matter what, and trusting that we're going to be okay.
Yeah, what I hear you speaking to is this like being fluid and being flexible and teaching our nervous system how to do that and being less rigid and
Yes.
in control, because we do need that flexibility to navigate life. Hands down, you have to have it. And the I think for me too, the rest part of it has been one of the most difficult things to do because I actually laugh at myself now rather than get frustrated because I'm like, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
You're trying to do 10 things at once, or you feel, a rest day is, you sure it's Saturday, but I'm going to clean the whole house, or like all these tasks and things that you think is a rest, quote unquote, rest day, or that mentality, did I earn my rest
Yeah.
day? And how that just continues to breed that language that you have to earn something that is innately part of what you're supposed to do anyways. Like there's, a rest day built into the nature of things for a reason. But it is so much about sitting in the uncomfortable because, man, there are some times when feel like crawling out of my skin sitting on the couch, not doing anything. Like, no phone, no podcast, no book, no Netflix, nothing. It's just to sit and be still and dial into that attunement. It's gotten a lot easier, especially using things like meditation and stuff.
Sure.
But like, it's really uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to do that. And so many people are so like on the other side of regulated that they can't even imagine what that would be like. Cause it's like, well, what are we going to do next? Or what's the project I need to work on now? Or it's just always that go, go, go. So the rest it's tough.
And that's why slowing down and learning to observe these patterns is so huge because you're right, it is unconscious, it's protective, and everybody's doing it. And so it's really difficult to see that if you're getting an applause every time you're overthinking and overdoing and pushing your body, that's I think of like David Goggins, right? And that mentality absolutely is needed sometimes. We want to have different gears when we're constantly using overwhelming force as our main gear with our body, eventually it's going to break down. You think about a car. If I'm constantly pushing the hell out of the car, beating it up, driving it hard, slamming on the brakes, well, it's going to get beat up and it's going to need to rest. And I think awareness and learning to follow your impulse, to know what you want to do, that can kind of shift us into being out and then out of doing. Doing says you got to do the right protocol, you got to do it perfect, you got to do it really hard to get the love and the attention that you want. And being says, what do you feel like doing right now? I know when my therapist brought that up to me, she was like, let's like, you're doing a lot. It's exhausting, and I didn't even know how to function in that. I'm like, well, tell me what to do. And we would just go around in circles laughing at each other because this pattern was so strong. But that's all you got to do to heal it. You just got to watch it and eventually learn, how does it feel to be the controller of your body, and what's it like to let that go? And you may not notice it in the beginning because you won't notice the deep breath. You're so used to bracing for the next thing, right? And learning to be is so powerful because it gives us our choice back. And where I start with my clients is a hell yes or it's a no, right? And it's like, hey, what do you want to do today? Do you want to do, I don't know, the same meal that you had? Yes, maybe it's a food thing. What do you want to have, the same meal that you've had every day this week? Or maybe I want like I don't know, a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit, and they light up and they're getting excited. I'm like, that's what we're looking for. I want to see those eyebrows go up. I want to see that big smile, that deep breath, that relaxing in your posture, because we may not recognize being when we've been doing our whole life.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. Hell yes or hell no, because I use the same thing. And making decisions in that method is different than usually what we know or we've been taught before. Is that even if there's some resistance or hesitancy, like just say yes, like just do it, and it's that old people pleasing side of things that gets hung up. And so I'm glad that you brought that aspect up as well, and giving yourself permission. That's what I feel like a lot of this nervous system work is, just giving yourself permission to be where you are. It's so powerful, and it's actually incredibly empowering to do that as well, because then it's so much less resistance.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you said that, as soon as you said give yourself permission, I took a deep breath right there because yeah, we don't have to be perfect. everybody's dealing with something, even us therapists and coaches and nervous system. We came to this work because we were dysregulated too. And I think being perfect and trying to have all the answers and judging ourselves, putting pressure on ourselves for wherever we are now, it just adds so much more to the system. And can we just be here now and accept ourselves and allow ourselves to move through whatever is here? And I think that's healing in itself.
One thing I'm wondering if we can chat about is something that I've been really diving into and exploring lately with myself, but then also with people I work with too, is learning more about this dopamine response and the connection with the dopamine in the nervous system, of how it's not always the end result of what we get, it's that build up to getting it is where we get the most dopamine out of. And so what I'm wondering, what you could give your insight into is how you see this play out with people, of how their nervous systems become very addicted to this dopamine, and how the result of what that looks like and how the threshold just keeps getting higher and higher. Or if you've seen that, like in the work that you do with people, if you've seen that play out in behaviors or things like that, is talk to us about that connection.
I don't know a whole lot about dopamine, to be honest with you. I know, social media and food and porn and drugs and alcohol can definitely be driven by dopamine, and everything in society is meant to kind of set us up to distract us when we're feeling uncomfortable. And that social media can be a dopamine. I think of social media immediately when we're talking about this. But I'd love for you to kind of tell me what you learned a little bit, to give me some examples, and I can piggyback off of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a different way that I've been kind of looking at things, because I've seen this strong connection, not only just like with military first responder, but literally everybody is. When we talk about like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, I call it, is your threshold, you start to become intolerant. Like when you take a medication,
Yeah,
and you start to build up a tolerance to that, then you
yeah.
need a little bit more medication, a little bit more. And I've seen the connection with that in our nervous system, of how the whatever our sex, drugs, rock and roll is, it starts to require a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. But it becomes, or the studies are showing now, it becomes this whole lead up to the thing that our nervous system is actually like thriving upon. And that's the addiction to the behavior through the nervous system, is that this is how this makes me feel.
Mm,
So like going to get the cookie, it's not about eating the cookie, but it's like the lead up of, I'm thinking about like, what kind of cookie am I going to get? Or how's this cookie going to taste? Or how's this cookie going to make me feel? And I already experienced the feelings before I even get to the stinking cookie, is that kind of element of it, of if you've had that play out in your life, or you've seen it play out in others' life, or that kind of, again, talking about how the threshold continues to grow. If any of that you've seen or know, or what are your thoughts on that?
I hear you, man. I mean, I think about, I was a wild man in college. I think about waiting on a drugs to get there, and you're more excited about the drug on its way than even trying it, right? And now, where my mind is at with it in my own personal healing, and I see this so much with my clients, is like this anticipation anxiety. And it's like, for me, that would look like I'm anticipating, I don't know, I'm not going to, um, I'm not gonna sleep good tonight, and so I'm really working myself up about that, and so I'm gonna bring in all of this fixing and figuring out of, why am I feeling this way? Number one, like that's the figuring out. Maybe I'm talking to AI, maybe I'm searching on social media for that. I'm taking supplements. I'm really working myself into a frenzy, and I see one of my OCD things is just anticipating how I'm going to feel tomorrow and trying to prevent that from happening, especially around sleep or around having activation, or if I'm fatigued. And the other day I went to I'm doing more local in-person networking and was doing really good, and woke up that morning with an overwhelming amount of fatigue. And in the past, what I would have done is go, oh shit, and cancel everything because I don't want to feel this way. It's impossible to have fatigue. But now, because I have done so many reps with the fatigue, I know that it's here to protect me. I know that it doesn't actually impact my performance, that there's actually nothing wrong with me. And so instead of picking up the supplement or trying some type of food hack, maybe that's fasting and drinking coffee and having, I don't know, methylene blue or something like that, so that my brain, I would show up completely wired, zapped in my head because now I'm trying to control it. But if I can see that old pattern and I can, this is where like the attachment repair kind of comes in, and I can just imagine this, talk nicely to myself when I see the dysregulation happening, anchor myself with the value that I love to be connected with people. I love to talk about what I do and how I help people. And I can work with that activation and comment and say, hey, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. This is completely okay and it's allowed. And even as I'm sitting here talking about it now, I can feel the grief under that, right? Even just coming up with this scenario. So if I can meet that grief, I can love that part of me that feels uncomfortable with this uncertain situation that I'm going to, and I can see how I've controlled this and how stressed out that makes me, and really how can I meet this moment differently. That's the new experience. And what happened that day is I had three events. The first one, I was shaky, I was nervous, and I ended up staying for an extra hour or two and hanging out with everybody and meeting some really cool people. By the time I went to the second one, I was about 50-50 with a little bit of fatigue. And then at the end of the day, I was 100%. I was wide open. I was enjoying a beer with everybody at this last networking event. And before, I would have been terrified and told myself, can't have any alcohol. That's bad. Got to be perfect diet. And that's how we heal trauma, is creating new experiences. Not once did I say I did it perfectly. Did I say I did the right job, or right supplement, or did I eat the right way that day? I see myself like trying to repeat this the following day because that day went well. But when you zoom out and you see, I don't have to fix it. I don't have to figure it out. Can I meet myself in this moment and move through this pattern in a different way? Then I'm really teaching my body safety. I'm teaching my body how to process and move through difficult stuff. And I'm building capacity to be with sensations. I'm repairing attachment wounds, and I'm learning to trust myself. And ultimately, that's what safety is just trusting yourself and meeting yourself in whatever's showing up.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. I'm curious where, or if you feel comfortable sharing, like where or what the grief is that's coming up for you in what you just spoke about.
Oh man, I mean, uh,
Yeah.
get out get out the tissues over here. I mean, the grief of holding all that together, how stressful that is, how much pressure that puts on us. Um, it was a lot for the little kid inside of me to carry, and it's a lot as the adult, and to see the response to not having safety when we were a kid, and to do everything we can to, like where we started, just to feel at home in our body. I mean, it's overwhelming. It's super sad, and it's amazing to see the journey of moving through that, and it's a lot to recognize how much we've been carrying. And damn, I mean, even just doing this now and letting that out, I mean, I feel like a calm kinda come over my body, that it's okay to have grief come up on a podcast and have tears in your eyes talking about protective patterns that we've carried for a long time, and that learning how to meet ourselves differently, it's just like it's a breath of fresh air. It's, damn, maybe I wasn't broken, and maybe I don't have to work so hard to feel good. And if I just trust my body, I become the medicine that I've been looking for in all of these compulsive responses to fix myself.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing that and for saying it and for opening up and showing or talking about that grief and the emotion you felt because I mean, I feel it with you too. I've been there as well of literally, I think the other day someone asked me what they could pray for me about, and I said to have grace and compassion for myself because as you're recalibrating, I call it, out of these old protective ways, it's a lot. It's a lot to sit with. It's a lot. It brings up a lot and it requires just endless supply of grace and patience for yourself. And I can feel resonate totally with you in the grief side of things because it's hard. It's hard. It's a lot. And, but you speaking of about it and talking about it, it opens up the door for other people to hear it and know that there's a different way of living life, a different way of mastering your nervous system and allowing it to work with you and not being held captive or the places in your life that aren't allowing you to be free don't have to be those kind of prisons anymore for you. So thank you for being willing to share it. And you're always welcome to have tears here
Yeah, definitely.
anytime.
No, I
Yes.
appreciate that, and I would counter that by saying, I mean, is it that difficult to have tears and let emotion out? I mean, it is if we have conditioning that says you're being a a bitch if you have tears. Like, yeah, I get that, and also it's really hard to deal with a body that feels like it's on fire, to feel like it can't get out of bed in the morning, to feel like I can't leave my house and I have to be perfect and do all these things to feel even the slightest little bit of safety. And once you can see those patterns, putting that down, putting the sword down and accepting your body, that's, I mean, that's the way, right? And it's difficult because that's what we've learned and maybe that's what we've repeated for a long period of time. But that's where awareness and education comes in, because when we can see it and we can experience it, we can observe ourselves in a different way, or meet ourselves in different ways and get different outcomes when it feels like life is Groundhog's Day with these symptoms. Well, then I'm willing to take the new difficult tears and being with sensations instead of trying to force my body to feel, whatever sense of safety I have been lacking.
Yeah, I appreciate that you said the putting the sword down. That's really powerful because I know I've had that experience too where it literally feels like you're at war with your body. Like you're
Yeah.
and I think about the how that goes is anything you're at war with, there's a resistance to, and it's always gonna be a set like a source of conflict essentially. And so you are not going to get anywhere if you're using this dialogue. I'm at war with my body, or I'm fighting against this, or it just that subtle dialogue already creates that resistance, that conflict within us. And I've tried to move away from that language as well, too, or any of that kind of language of being at war with anything really, but especially when it comes to your body. It's really powerful. So,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's a
just
good way.
you had permission. You had permission to be you. You had to be as messy as to not be perfect, to get it wrong, to
Yeah.
just be you. Show up, be messy, do it how you do it, and be okay with what's next. And man, that's powerful.
So one of the things I think that's helped me through my journey as well too, and would like to hear your side of it, is having the support system around you to allow you to go through. I call it the great dismantling. Is part of this, taking all these old narratives, all these old stories, and breaking them apart and reworking in a new way of being through your nervous system as well. But how did this go for you? Like, I know you have a family, like, you have a support system. Like, how did this go for you, you going through your process and having support on the other side?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a difficult one. I think the support system is huge. I think we find, you know, our chosen family when we go through this, and we can lose a lot of friends and family that we felt like were on our sides. When we start to choose ourselves and showing up in a different way, that can make other people uncomfortable, and it can make them they want the old version of us because maybe they benefited from it or kept some kind of peace because of it. And so with me, with my family, there was a lot of there's early developmental trauma that I wasn't aware of that was causing a lot of the symptoms and survival responses that I learned. It came from those early environments. And when I brought that up to my family, it was not accepted. It was kind of what I learned eventually is it was dismissed and I guess gaslit. And it made me question my own reality. And so when I saw that when I was authentic in myself and expressed myself with my friends, it was okay. And with some of my family members, it was not. And so there were some difficult decisions where ultimately I went no contact for a couple of years with family members, and luckily we've been able to patch things up. But I had to choose myself, and I had to surround myself by people that were gonna meet the healthier version of me that supported me. And I was lucky enough that I had so many good friends around me. And through the journey of going no contact, my family and I have repaired that relationship and worked through so much, and it wasn't going to be possible without me having a safe space to express myself authentically and to be me and to work on the wounds that were driving a lot of the dysfunction. And I think we all healed through it. But that takes choosing yourself as much as it takes choosing good people around you. I had digital mentors in the beginning where I was listening to good podcasts and reading lots of books, and eventually in communities to where I learned how to heal the nervous system and to be a practitioner with my mentor Irene Lyon and all the girls that were in the mentorship that I was in. And it was like a breath of fresh air to have someone accept me for who I'm at, where I'm at, and who I am. And instead of telling me, that's wrong or that's bad, and to support me showing up more authentically. One example that I remember, and I really learned about vulnerability, especially as a man. God, we're going to have to get the tissues out today. Um, where I was in these groups, and we would do these in our nervous system group with Irene Lyon. We'd have these breakout rooms where we do exercises that I'm sure you're aware to cause vulnerability and to let some of this stuff come up, and I didn't know how to be with that in the beginning, and I was shutting down because it was just way outside of my capacity to be vulnerable, to show up with vulnerability, and to express that, especially with a bunch of women. And I remember thinking, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. I think I gotta stop doing this course because every Monday we have a 2 hour class, and afterwards I'm collapsed and I'm tired for like 2 or 3 days. Um, that's a whole nother conversation to unpack is that response to that. But what happened is we had a WhatsApp group, and eventually I was like, hey, I'm getting super dysregulated after these calls. And it's like I freeze up and I think of the Talladega Nights, like Will Ferrell, like I don't know what to do with my hands. I didn't know
Yes.
to be. And the coolest thing happened when I chose to be vulnerable and share what I was feeling, because I had learned for so long to stuff that down, to avoid that, to not appear weak. That's what I was taught showing emotion means. And they were so excited. They're like, hell yeah, we feel the same way. I get fucking dysregulated too. And I get really uncomfortable, and you're not alone. And here's what we do to deal with that. And when we're vulnerable and we put information out there in the field, we think we're risking looking a certain way, but then we get to meet our people. We get to meet the people that are going to show up and support us as we learn how to shed these old layers, as we unwind these identities that we thought was us, that we thought was keeping us safe. But meanwhile, it's really just keeping us small and keeping us dysregulated, and keeping these symptoms coming. And when I can go into my body, share how I feel, that makes me feel more comfortable around the people. And when I get that support back from them and more information on how to show up, the next meeting, they were all checking on me, sending me DMs and saying, how you doing? And nobody had ever done that for me before. And so that was just something I hadn't experienced before. And it was so healing to be able to trust that, to trust someone else, and to eventually trust myself and what I'm feeling. Um, yeah, that was a big one.
Mm, what a powerful story. I love and it sounds like a really badass community, a good group. Wow. Well, I feel like we could probably talk for hours about all this stuff. But in the few minutes that we have left, I want to give you time to talk a little bit about the work that you do and how you kind of have taken all of this and it's extension of you now. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do working with other people and then follow up with where can people connect with you?
Yep. No, I appreciate that. I think if we go any longer, I'm gonna have to invest in a new box of tissues over here. But I appreciate the opportunity to share. Right now, what I do is one-on-one coaching. Eventually, I want to build out a community and a program. And right now, I'm just kind of understanding what that means. But when I'm working with people, it tends to be men. I also work with women as well, but it's men who are sensitized, right? So they have experienced stress for a long period of time, and basically, they have been fixing and figuring things out for a really long time, and their system feels like it's under threat constantly. The hypothalamus is going crazy, scanning for meaning. There's adrenaline flooded the system. They typically have symptoms like anxiety, fatigue, insomnia, lots of different gut issues, skin stuff showing up, pain in the body, and a lot of times they're high performers who have been an athlete, been in war, been at the head of a boardroom, and they just don't feel like their body's given up on them and it's broken. And so the way I see this is number one, it's education. It's understanding the nervous system, understanding how the brain plays a part in this, learning what dysregulation, fight or flight, living in survival means, and then building awareness in the body. When we have trauma, we disconnect from our body. We don't know what it means. I would say before this, I have so much going on in my body. I don't understand it. It feels like I'm sitting in the fire, right? And it's terrifying and I can't put the fire out. And so we learn how to use resources, external and internal, meaning how do I settle and what helps me relax? If that's a beer or a joint, totally cool. And if that's a medication, whatever, if that's a walk in the park, if that's hanging out with the dog, a bubble bath, a blanket, all those things are resources. And how can I learn to be with the difficult sensations by bringing in a resource? And then learning how to use our senses, that's an internal resource, to orient, to be in the room right now, to feel our butt in the chair, to view the environment around us and really start to learn what it feels like to get that little hit of parasympathetic, right? Of rest and digest, of the gut coming back online, and building capacity to be with the difficult sensations in our body so that eventually we learn we don't have to fix them. We don't have to figure them out. We can just be with them, and when we're with them, instead of calling it anxiety or calling it fatigue, what else could it be? Could it be tightness? Could it be a warmth? Where is it in my body? And so this is bringing in the somatic lens. And what does this remind me of? Now we're kind of going into the past and seeing, is there an image that comes up? Is there a sensation that we experience in the body? What does that tell me about myself? And how can I be there for myself in this moment? So now we're repairing attachment. We're repairing the parts of us that felt unsafe and uncertain, and expressing the emotions that come along with that. And as we do that, we're doing little bits at a time, and we're just emptying the bucket. And over time, people learn how to do this at home. I do this with them in session. And it's amazing to see how the symptoms shift and improve when we're not constantly treating ourselves as a project to be fixed, and we're meeting ourselves with compassion and curiosity instead, and learning how to express this backlog and years, usually decades maybe, of emotions that never got to come through. And we're meeting the authentic version of ourselves, and eventually the symptoms start to relax and die down. And hey, I'm going through that process myself. Just like Ashley said, we're not complete projects over here. We're doing it messy. We're figuring it out as we go. And life is so much better when we can be ourselves, and we can express ourselves, and meet the authentic version of ourselves. And we don't have to deal with these symptoms anymore.
So well said. I love that compassion and curiosity.
Yeah.
Really powerful.
And
Yeah.
where can they find me? I've got a website. It's mitchwebb.com. There's a contact form on there. I do a free 30-minute consultation for anybody that's interested. I will give that link to Ashley so she's got it. And I've got a podcast. It's called Rooted Conversations. It's on YouTube. I'm active on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I'm trying to figure out TikTok. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, it's one-on-one coaching now. I do free 30-minute consultations, and I'd love to chat with anybody if this chat's been resonating with them.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure people will be reaching out and getting so much from this conversation in general, because it is really so powerful, and it is something that we don't really often talk about. So I'm glad that there are people like you out there doing the work with it as well.
Thanks so much, Ashley. It's been great chatting with you.
You too, yes. Well, thank you to everyone who is out there listening and joining in with our conversation today. And like always, we appreciate you so much and appreciate your love and support. You can check us out on all the places as well. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all the things. Make sure you like and stay connected with us and shoot us some comments. If you like this conversation or you have questions about the nervous system stuff, we can always dive into a part 2. So give us some questions and we would love to hear from you. Go out there, everybody, and have an amazing day. And remember that you are incredibly loved and accepted, and we will see you on the next episode.
Bye-bye.